joined us that is on the committee. I am sitting in as chair today for Brad, so please bear with me as I try and go through our list and do it correctly. So I'd like to call the meeting to order now, please. It's 2 o'clock. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I can approve move that we approve the agenda.
Thanks, Janice. Oh, thank you. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Aaron. Can we have a show of hands, just all in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Any discussion of any disclosure of pecuniary interest that we need to talk about today for any of our members? No, seeing no, with a shake of heads, we'll go on to the next. Confirmation of minutes. Is everybody okay with the minutes from the last meeting? Seeing no discussion that is evident, could I have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting, please? Thanks. Aaron is making the motion. Janice is seconding it. Thank you. Show of hands for, okay. That's carried. We have one application today. Application A016-2021. And the applicant is 2737468 Ontario Incorporated. The agent representing is Triton Engineering. And the request for relief, it's kind of long, so just bear with me. In advance of an application to the County of Wellington Land Division Committee, relief is being requested to permit a reduced lot area of 534 meters, 5,747.9 square feet, as opposed to the required minimum of 557.4 meters or 6,000 square feet, and to permit an increased maximum lot coverage of 38%, as opposed to the permitted maximum of 30% for the retained lot. Relief is also being requested to permit a reduced lot frontage of 14.10 meters or 46.26 feet, as opposed to the required minimum lot frontage of 15.2 meters or 60 feet, and to permit a reduced minimum lot area of 363 square meters as opposed to 3,907.3 square feet, as opposed to the required minimum for 557.4 square meters or 6,000 square feet for the severed lot. The effect of the variance is to facilitate the creation of a new lot and construction of one new detached dwelling. Chantel, can you advise that the sign was posted?
Yes, I can confirm that the requirements for posting the sign were completed in accordance with the Planning Act.
Thank you. Now, I think that Mr. White is from Triton. Mr. White, would you like to give us some idea of what the applicant has intended, please?
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to address the committee on behalf of the applicant. I work for Triton Engineering on a part-time basis, so Triton was preparing a grading plan. I do planning advice. I've essentially retired from municipal work, worked a long time with committees of adjustment, so it's a pleasure to kind of come back for one hearing after many years in the business. The applicant, as you have outlined, proposes variances on lot area and lot coverage for the existing single detached dwelling on the retained lot that he proposes to create if committee considers approving this variance or the variances. And he is seeking lot frontage and lot area variances on the proposed severed lot. This parcel is kind of in a unique area of the heritage overlay in Fergus, an area where there's some fairly shallow lots and sort of more intensive residential uses. And so I prepared a planning report for the applicant, and I'm not sure if the committee received that or not, but I can go through that if you wish, or if you want more information from me as far as comments that have been presented. What's the committee's wish, if I may ask?
I think everybody received that planning report. Does anybody need Mr. White to go over it, or can we hold it for questions after? Fernando, are you okay?
I think it'll be useful if the applicant will give us a summarized version of the report very quickly.
All right. If I may, through you, Madam Chair.
For sure.
Under provincial policy, the growth plan and the 2020 provincial policy statement, they have a number of provincial suggestions regarding infill and making maximum use of municipal services and focusing growth and development on settlement areas. It also talks a lot about heritage, and all of these policies have to be read in a whole together and balanced against one another. So obviously this site is unique in that it is located in a heritage district, and so provincial policy anyway talks about not detracting from that resource. And our feeling is that, and my feeling is that this one is consistent with provincial policy and the growth plan. Committee is well aware of the 4 tests that you have to consider. Your official plan also has a couple of additional tests. We looked at the lots proposed and severed and retained in terms of their impact on the area. As you know, it sits across from a hospital and it butts on a funeral home, and there are smaller lots sort of in the immediate area of this property, some shallow lots, some deeper lots, and then as you go out beyond into the broader heritage district, there are a number of large lots with large heritage homes. And I think that was the essence of the overlay, reading those policies. And the planners have done a good job of analyzing it from perspective of that heritage overlay. I think there's just a general disagreement in terms of impact and what the character of the area is right in the immediate vicinity of this lot. So it's acknowledged that it is certainly a very small parcel, but it also is, if you were standing on the street, which is where most people will experience the impacts, what you would see if this lot is created is 2 homes that meet the setback requirements, side yard setback requirements. And overall, the whole width of the lot would be consistent with the zoning for that heritage overlay. Where the rub is, I guess, in terms of the need for the variance is the lack of depth on the lots. And so that puts the existing home, which is kind of strangely set to one side with very shallow front and rear yards at the one end, and then has quite a bit larger open space on the other side. And it's on that other side where the applicant proposes to create this lot. The lot frontage is, as you probably know, calculated at the front yard depth on a line. It's very technical as to how it's calculated. So what we've put in there is as close as we can get without having this all surveyed at this point in time. But cumulatively between the two lots, the frontage would actually be compliant if it weren't for this mid-century modern bungalow being sat on and quite a bit wider than sort of normal, and the lack of depth of the lot. So when we looked at that, I felt it was certainly a variance that could be considered minor, given the institutional commercial uses and in this particular immediate area, the smaller lots and the lack of depth. And keeping in mind that if the lot is created, the new home would meet all the remaining site and building regulations, side yards, building height, lot coverage, and so forth. As mentioned in the planner's report, this is a compatible land use with the other one-family dwellings in the area, and obviously with the institutional and commercial uses nearby. I believe there are apartments also nearby, but and then it's not far from the downtown. I've been to the site, obviously been to the site with my wife at the hospital, so fairly familiar with it, other than looking at it at maps, and it's certainly mixed, and in particular beautiful older homes sort of away from where the subject site is, and then smaller lots and commercial and institutional closer to where this proposed lot would be created. In terms of outdoor amenity space, the planner rightly points out that this space that the lot is proposed would be the loss as amenity space. And these days, I mean, people are looking for all sorts of different homes, and I don't know if the word should be affordable housing anymore, but maybe I think the buzzword is attainable housing. So there is a need for attainable housing, and people will, particularly someone say myself, who don't want a large yard necessarily, but want to still maintain a single family home in a neighborhood. I think it will be both the home on the retained lot and the new lot, if the committee chooses to create it, would be desirable. And I think it would bring home ownership into a community which is largely home ownership, and would be more on the side of attainable and affordable. In terms of the access to this property, it has some grade issues that can be addressed through design. It has sewer and water access, and infilling obviously is very, very important to communities, and the county official plan now and in the future will place a huge emphasis on infilling, and that density is a lot higher than certainly would be characteristic of this neighborhood. Now, I'm not saying that you should just cram homes in everywhere, but because this is a sort of a unique part of the Heritage District, I felt that it was compatible in terms of being desirable for the appropriate development of the lands. I go through in the report the intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. Again, that's a lot of stuff about the heritage overlay and intensification and balancing those considerations. So I do believe that this variance would pass the tests that are set out in the Planning Act, and that the committee has obviously considered numerous times in various applications. There are additional tests that are in the official plan that talk about reasonable conditions and so forth. In terms of the heritage overlay, because we don't believe that the lot itself would detract from the heritage overlay, we think that the home could be subject to some sort of architectural considerations that would allow for a compatible design. And I did provide a couple of samples of that for discussion. I believe, and throughout my career, I've felt that committees of adjustment are the absolute perfect place for applications of this type, because they deal with, I'll call them one-off or specific situations where unique site characteristics exist, that things can happen and you can place conditions on to make it more compatible with the neighborhood. And I've certainly been a proponent for using the committee and reasonable conditions to make things like this happen, because I think using existing services to their through infilling is critical. in terms of the viability. It provides housing choice on lot sizes that are different and varied, and that people are clearly looking for these days in communities like this that are strong and viable. And so I recommended, and the applicant supports conditions that link this severance only, or this variance only, to the severance application, and that allow final dimensions to be confirmed by survey. It is not surveyed yet. I think when we're done surveying that, you'll find that the variances are probably slightly smaller, but I don't want to confirm that until obviously he goes ahead and does a final survey. And that one final condition would be that deal with the issues raised by the CBO regarding limiting distance on that end wall facing the proposed lots. The applicant is willing to undertake renovations to comply with the code as far as reducing or protecting the openings on that side. So obviously that doesn't become an issue unless the lot is created. And I guess finally, without taking up too much of the committee's time, I wanted to comment on the procedural issue about whether the variance should go first or the severance. And I don't know if you knew, I was 8 years with the town of Minto and was secretary treasurer of their committee of adjustment. And I always differed with the fact that a lot of these went to severance first and then got a conditional approval, presumably subject to zoning being dealt with. I think the issue here really is one for the committee to deal with first, and whether this lot would be compatible to the area, which I truly believe it is and can be. And then if the committee and the people in the neighborhood and so forth, and the staff can deal with that issue as a group, then it can go to severance later. And that issue, one of the many that you deal with under the subdivision provisions of the Planning Act, would be addressed. That is the issue in terms of whether this, if the zoning is and the variances are in place, then the issues of access to the road and servicing and grading and drainage and so forth that are common with severance kind of are more straightforward. To me, these always should go to committee first or for zoning first, but I know the county differs from that, and I had numerous discussions over the years with them on it. It also differed in other communities where I worked, both. So for many years did the committee of adjustment work on Owen Sound, and they always did that first, and then it would go for severance separate. So I feel this is a place for the committee to deal with. I think that the applicant has proposed something that is reasonable and complies with the tests that the committee must consider, and that it represents good planning practice in the heritage overlay. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the committee to Mr. White? No questions from anyone? Okay. Are there questions? Are there questions? Am I ahead of myself? Are there questions to staff from the committee?
I have a couple questions.
Okay, Aaron.
I'm just thinking through possible precedents, the neighboring lots here. 275 Gowrie Street seems almost similar in size to what is being requested as the severed lot here. And then also 241, while it's a much larger lot, the built form on that lot looks like it maximizes the space on that lot almost to a greater degree than what is being proposed on this site. And the rear yard setback looks like it's, a couple meters in some locations. And I'm just wondering if staff can comment on that in terms of those two neighboring properties.
Sure, thank you. So and just while you were speaking, I was bringing up the dimensions here. So the lot to the south, so 275, it's an existing non-conforming lot created some time ago. Let me just. So that lot is 485 square meters in size. Again, that building is right up against the front property line. So there is actually virtually no front yard and no rear yard. The building maximizes pretty much the front to back length there. And then when we're talking about 241, which is the lot to the north, I reviewed that one, and that one is actually just at the minimum for size of the lot itself is minimum of our minimum requirement in the Fergus Heritage Overlay is 557, and that lot is at approximately 566. So that lot itself next door to the north will give you an idea of the minimum lot size requirement to create a new lot. So that's just speaking about those two lots in comparison. And so the one that is being requested to be created here is at 360, sorry, don't have it in front of me. About, I think 363 was the number. So in relation to the lot coverage, I believe that the lot next door is a new build. It doesn't show up actually on the aerial photo, as you can see from the staff report. So it was constructed after 2015, the aerial photos from 2015. And while it might maximize the lot coverage, the allowable lot coverage there is 30%. So it would be at the 30% coverage. And they're proposing that for this property here, that it would meet the 30% coverage for the new lot. However, the lot's significantly smaller, so obviously it would be a smaller building footprint that just complies with the setbacks. So I hope that gives you an idea of the differences there and answers that question. But if you want further clarification, I can also do that.
So just to go back to 275, that's non-conforming, but I mean, the assumption is that that built form will probably be there for the foreseeable future. Like it's not going to go anywhere. That's going to remain.
Right. I mean, it's a non-conforming lot. It's not listed on the Heritage Register. Technically speaking, if somebody were to tear it down, it could be rebuilt on that footprint, but it is. I mean, if you look at it's an anomaly in that neighborhood. It's very, very small, and comparatively, just comparing it to every other lot around it or in the neighborhood, it's significantly smaller than every other lot in the neighborhood.
So, and in the opinion of staff, is it detrimental to the neighborhood in terms of the built form and the streetscape?
For 275,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have any functional yards, so I'm not sure that it's desirable. There's no front yard, there's no rear yard. They might have a very small corner. Once you put a driveway in there, which they've got on the north side, they don't have any usable yards. So that's a building without any amenity space, which is really not what's intended by all the setback requirements in the bylaw and the minimum lot size requirements. You want to have circulation for parking, for front, for consistency for streetscape purposes, but also I think that lot was a function of a very irregular block shape as well. If you look at the sort of triangular shape on one side of that block, these two lots in particular, the subject property and the one to the south, are quite, they're just very unique properties. Hence the issues they have with very almost no front yard and virtually no rear yards because of the positioning of the houses on the lots.
Okay, thank you. I do have one more question, but I'll let other committee members jump in.
Okay,
I do have a question. The new build on 241, it does comply with the setbacks and side yards and so forth, as far as we know.
To my knowledge, for a building permit to have been issued, it would have complied with all of the zoning requirements.
Yeah, because I don't remember the committee dealing
Haven't been
with
any.
that. Oh,
Sorry, I might have frozen there because I think my internet connection. Sorry. Yeah, I was just saying for a permit to have been issued, it would have complied with current zoning for the heritage overlay. And I'm not aware of any variances that were requested or proposed on that lot, so it would comply.
Okay. So, and then a second question that I have is the house on this existing lot, the front yard, the setback, it would not comply. It's non-conforming, right?
Yes, that's correct. When it was constructed, it was, I'm not sure what the bylaw requirements were of the day, but they were not, for it to comply with proper, current front yard setback requirements, it would have been moved north. It would have been more centrally located on that lot in order to comply with the actual front yard requirements.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
any other questions for staff?
Another question for staff. If the applicant wanted to put a tiny home or a garden suite, would they be able to here?
They could put an accessory unit with a variance in a detached building, as we've seen with many others. A garden suite is not something that is necessarily permitted on a lot of this size, but there is some intensification potential on this lot for a second unit, definitely through an addition or through with a variance, a unit on top of a garage or as a separate unit itself on the lot. But it would require a variance at this point. We are looking at updating our zoning bylaw to allow these as of right, 1 unit within the house, 1 unit outside of the house. That's been directed by the province. So we are still working on those adjustments, but the intent is to allow intensification of lots by those means.
Okay. A question for the applicant. How and are you including parking or a garage in your proposal?
I'm not sure if Alan would like to answer that or if he wants me to.
No, you go ahead. You know the design of the parcel there, so you go ahead.
So I think the applicant obviously considered the ideas brought forth by the planner regarding accessory units. He lives in the home that's there now and believes the use being single family on the new lot would be more compatible and is more of interest to him. As far as the building envelope, it would have an attached garage. So if you face this lot from the front, it slopes to the right if you're looking at it. And so you could see a side split kind of design with the garage being lower and then the livable space above that kind of design. I think there could be things done very attractive architecturally that would be compatible with some of the historic architecture that's in the area. The home that's beside it is a newer home, no doubt, and I don't know that it has a lot of heritage architecture in it. Certainly not an expert in that, but this would have an attached garage with it and the living space over top.
And I have a comment as well. Am I okay to speak, Madam Chair?
Okay, thank you for asking. Yes.
For committee member McCrimmon Jones, I think, I read the comments from my neighbors and I read kind of where everybody's at. And I think the one thing that we need to consider here is Union Street's not Gowrie Street. I live in, my home here is built in 1955. 275 was built probably around the same time. The house beside me is 5 years old. There's going to be a development at the hospital at some point, which, I'm encouraged to see, whether it's a long-term care facility to help out the people in our community. When one of the neighbors asked about traffic, I mean, traffic is going to be inevitable as they build condos down on Queen Street. So Queen Street to Gowrie Street to Union Street, there is it is all heritage overlay, but there is a major difference of style homes. And, as a single dad with a daughter that's here 50% of the time, love the amount of yard I have. I don't want more. I need to be able to do other things and go to work and travel for work. So, everybody's different. And that's the one thing I think about Gowrie Street that really, this lot creation, that if you, decide it's something that is necessary, I think it's a good thing in the fact that it's going to allow someone to come and move into our neighborhood and have ownership opposed to rentals. I know my neighbors and we've all talked about it. They like the idea of people having skin in the game with owning something. And I'm willing to work with, the township when it comes to design. If it's something that I'd like to look like heritage. That being said, my house is just a block. It's just a block and stucco house. It doesn't look heritage. If they want me to do something with the windows, as reported by the chief building officer, it's funny that's the timing. Those 3 windows are the last wood windows in this house. So they're going to have a place. So if they have to be put with fire regulations, that's fine. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I'd like to work with the township. I was glad to see that the county didn't have any objections to the land severance side of things. So, at the end of the day, I'm the applicant. I live here. I'm not going anywhere. But we do talk about affordable housing and attainable housing and infill. And in my opinion, I'm not a planner, but I'm the applicant. In my opinion, this is a great way to have new neighbors and have young neighbors that can get into our community at an affordable price. So I'll leave it at that. That's my comments, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for staff or for the applicant?
I do have a question for staff. So when we're talking about neighborhood compatibility, what's the buffer around the particular parcel? Do we go to a 500-meter buffer to see what's the compatibility specifically to this site, or just by what's the criteria behind?
Thank you. I think so. Are you asking for the neighborhood itself, what do we look at? The scope or scale of that neighborhood?
Yes.
So what we look at, okay. So we look generally, at least within the block itself. So something to note here is that when staff provided comments on this, it was in light of the variances, but we did not do a fulsome review of the severance potential here. So that application still has to be made to the county, and staff will comment. But one of the criteria we do look at, and one of the criteria we need to consider for a consent or a severance application when this lot goes forward to the county, is one criterion is that it meets the zoning requirements, the minimum zoning requirements, but also that it's generally consistent and compatible with the lotting pattern. And that's really what is at issue here, is that the lotting pattern is significantly different. And granted, acknowledging that it is a unique situation and a unique lot. But we looked within that block for sure, that block that the property is in. And then around it, you sort of zoom out a little bit and can see that there, and Mr. White is correct, there's a lot of other styles of homes and properties here, but there is some consistency around it, both on St. David Street, on Union Street. So, there are some narrower lots on Union Street, yes, but they are narrow and quite long and quite large. So there is, both of these areas have actually been identified as well in our cultural heritage landscape study that's going to council in 2 weeks, as having, being in an area that has some heritage value and some significance to the community. So, we would look, I would say then broadly at Gowrie Street within that block for certain, the streets just around this block, and then, looking down, sort of down Union Street, but just slightly, not, obviously not all the way down. It's hard to say that there's anything very consistent in this block or this neighborhood, but creating this parcel would be the very smallest lot in the neighborhood, in the surroundings, and that's by a significant margin. It would be smaller. So I hope those comments help.
Okay. No, the reason why I'm asking is because I'm looking at around the neighborhood, and I'm looking at 155 Union Street West, which is within the 175 meters of this particular application, and that's a very unique lot as well. So I'm just comparing lots and sizes and shapes.
Again, that is a triangular block, so it's probably a function of like those very small lots. Yes, you point out there on Union Street West, there are 3 lots that look like they're small lots, and they're very smaller and narrower, again because of the function of the shape of that block, where some lots are, many of those lots are just very irregular in shape, and were likely created many decades ago.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I have a brief comment?
Sure.
I just wanted to add to the planner's comments that really, in the response to the question, it is an issue of feel and character and not sort of numbers. And it is a subjective thing, and I think everyone could have a different view of it, but I would encourage the committee to focus on character in terms of the feel and use and look of the neighborhood, and not the sort of numbers. And I think the case law in terms of variances over the many years that committees of adjustment have dealt with these things don't focus on numbers, but really focus on character and impact, and what is the impact of this lot, given that it will be single family and is nearby by the applicant's home and so forth. So.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, I would just like to make comment that we had a letter from the Giddy's funeral home that is in support of the application, and that we have a letter from Simon Smith and Heather Napton of 200 Union Street East that are opposed. Chantel, there was indication on this letter that they wanted to be present at the meeting. Are they here, do you know?
I had checked earlier with the clerk that's running the meeting, and she just confirmed again, they did not show up. They were provided the Zoom link to attend, and they are not on the call.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to now open it up for the committee's discussion. So maybe we can start with, I'm just going to go from top across. Janice, your comments, please.
Okay, first of all, I think I'm not really comfortable with considering a minor variance prior to the lot actually being created. And I know there are certain circumstances which Mr. White had pointed out that I can see where there are times when it could be considered, but in this particular case, I think there's too many variances. Like there's too many things that need to be modified and for it to be created. And we really would, the application would really be creating two very undersized lots. And I guess I'd really, the county planning staff, they've not done an evaluation of the appropriateness of the severance. I mean, they did comment that they didn't have any concern with the variances, but that's not based on an evaluation of the appropriateness of the actual severance. So. And I think that in looking at it, because I have driven by it, I drove by it a couple of times, and I'm trying to picture, you know, a house there and being totally separate. It'd be very cramped, you know, and not that I do agree with the idea of infilling and creating additional housing and affordable housing, or you know, whatever we want to call it now. But it's not that. I think it's very much in demand in this particular area. And so it's not that I'm opposed to that at all, but I do find this very, very small, and I really do. I really would like to see it go to land division before it comes to committee of adjustment. And I also think that there's other options here. You know, there's options of adding on to this existing house and doing something along the lines of you know, a rental unit. And I know that that's maybe not something that the applicant has in mind, but I'm not so sure that I'm really in support of it without it going to land division first. Thank you.
Thank you. Fernando.
I do agree with Janice's comments. I don't think this is a case of minor variance. I think there's more things that we have to look further. This is a very unique and particular lot with a slope on top of that, and I do believe that we need an intensification. But I think this particular case, and given the case that the official plan hasn't changed or modified to allow tiny homes, I think we have to look at this a little bit further. Okay, thank you.
Aaron?
I was been on the fence with this one for sure. And I absolutely appreciate staff's comments and all the great work they always do, but I think I'm going to disagree here and support the variance. And my reasons why, I think I mentioned some of them already, but I don't see a lot of consistency in terms of the lotting pattern around here, or even the land use for that matter. And I think that's what gives the neighborhood some of its character. There are smaller lots right next door at 275. And when I visited site, that didn't stand out to me like it was problematic or it didn't work with the neighborhood. And there are some narrow lots on Union as well, long narrow lots, although they're bigger in area. The frontages are narrow. In terms of amenity space, I totally appreciate staff's comments in terms of that. But I do think there's something to be said for the market and purchasers making decisions about how much amenity space they want. And there is a lot of amenity space in the immediate area. You know, within probably a 5-minute walk, there's a number of parks. And then finally, even if we did look at other options, like a secondary unit or an extension, there would be some built form there anyways. There would be additional people there, additional parking. So whether it's severed or not, I don't know that solves some of the issues that we've heard. So for those reasons, I'm going to be supporting it.
Thank you. guess it's my turn. I was on the fence with this one too. I came to the conclusion that I can't support it. I just find that the lot is just too small. By the time you try and build a house with a garage on that lot, there's just over a meter on either side of the house. And I just really feel that when you drive down that road, it's going to look like it's really, really squashed in there. And because it's in a heritage area, I am hoping that we're going to be able to maintain a kind of consistency in the lot patterns that are there already. And I realize it's across from the hospital and there's the funeral home behind it. So it is a specific lot in that area, but I still feel as though it would really squash that house into that space. So I can't support I can't support this application. That being said, it looks like to me that there are 3 people opposed and 1 person for. Am I correct in that? Looks like, yeah. Okay. So that being said, Chantal, I think that the application seems to not be going forward.
May I, Madam Chair, speak briefly again?
You know, I can't allow that unless the committee agrees because we've gone into closed session. So I guess I would have to. Is there a show of hands for Mr. White to speak? No, I don't see a show of hands to allow it. So I'm sorry, but I can't allow that through our procedures. So Chantal, could you read the decision?
Sure. So I'm going to read a decision that is refusing it based on what I've heard the committee's general comments are. And then we can, if you want to make any changes, you can discuss the motion that I've put forward after that. So go from there. That in the matter of application for minor variance for relief from the Township of Center Wellington zoning bylaw 2009-045 as amended, section 7.1.3, table 7C, permission be refused to permit a reduced lot of 534 meters squared as opposed to the required 557 meters squared, and increased maximum maximum lot coverage of 38% as opposed to the permitted maximum 30% for the retained lot. Relief is also refused to permit a reduced lot frontage of 14.10 meters as opposed to the required minimum lot frontage of 15.2 meters and a reduced lot area of 363 meters squared as opposed to the minimum requirement of 557.4 meters squared for the severed lot. That's the motion as it reads. If you want to make any amendments, let me know.
Thanks, Chantal. Any amendments from anybody on the committee? No. Okay.
Sorry, did we want to say anything a little bit more with respect to maybe it's like we're thinking that it's a little more premature before going to land division committee, or do we want to just leave that?
If I may, through you, Madam Chair, I would that would be noted in the minutes. I don't think we would add that to the actual decision. Okay. Just the way that it has been presented in the order that it has. So yeah, the minutes, I can also provide the county with the minutes when I send them the notice of the decision, so they can understand it. If the applicant chooses to go forward with the land division committee application, regardless of this outcome, he can choose to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Janice?
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry, Mr. White, I can't allow you to speak. So that being said, I think the committee has made their decision. I think the applicant still has the opportunity to go to county to ask for a severance if that is his intention. And also there is still the opportunity to think about another opportunity to maybe add a rental suite or a garage with a thing above it, a rental suite above it, if that's his intention. But I think the committee's made their decision. So I think that at this point, there is a 20-day appeal period.
Sorry,
So-
Kathy, just we need a mover and a seconder for that motion, and then a vote.
Okay.
I know you're not used to doing this.
No, sorry, Chantal. Okay, do I have a mover for that vote? Janice is moving the vote. Do I have a seconder?
I can check on that.
Fernando can I have a show of hands, please? Okay, 3 people in favor and 1 opposed. Chantal?
Yep, I got that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much for the reminder. So there is now a 20-day appeal period, and I guess if you are interested in the appeal process, you could probably talk to Chantal and she can give you the information on how to proceed with that. Thank you. So I guess now we're on to other business. Chantal?
Sorry, I think that we'll just wait for the applicants to be removed from the meeting, and then we can. Or I don't know, maybe they're not leaving. Okay. All right, so other business, we have an application next month, again, possibly 2. So that's on July, let me look at my calendar. July 15th. I think, Janice, did you say you can attend already, that one?
Yes, I am not going to be available for that meeting, so.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Other than that, I don't have anything, and I thought you did a good job.
Thank you. Did I miss anything that I shouldn't have?
No, that was fine. I think that when you go into, I think you referred to it as closed session, but really it's just the discussion of the committee. You don't typically allow the applicant or their agent to add further comments. So I think you were right. You use the word closed session, which is not the right terminology, but otherwise it was great.
Thank you. I guess that's council.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so I'm not sure whether, I'm sure that they were not happy with that decision, and so you may be hearing something back from them, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out.
Yes, and yeah, I'm not sure how an appeal on variances that aren't actually applicable on a piece of land will play out, but hey, it's new for me, but I'll keep you guys posted.
Thank you. So if there are no other questions or comments from the committee, I guess that we can adjourn.
Just need a mover and a seconder on that.
Thank you. Do I have a mover to adjourn? Janet? A seconder? Aaron? All in favor? Thank you. Thanks a lot for your patience, everybody. See you in July.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
You did well. Thanks.